Hello and welcome. I'm Professor Khalid Khan. I am based at the University of Granada in Spain. Today we will talk about authorship criteria for a scientific paper. And to help me present the video today, I have with me Professor Bassel, who is also my friend. So to begin with, Bassel, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you for this opportunity today, Khalid. So my name is Bassel Wattar. I'm an associate professor of reproductive medicine and the medical director of the clinical trials unit at Anglia Ruskin University in the UK.
Okay, thank you, Bassel. Basel and I have many common publications, and obviously, in each one of these, we have had to deal with the issue of authorship.
Indeed.
So, to set the scene, I'll show you a couple of examples of published papers where you can see that under the title, you see the names of the authorship. In one case, there is a list of individual name, and this is often known as byline authorship. And in the other, you also see the name of a group, and this is called group authorship. And a hybrid too is possible where individual could be named alongside the group. So this is the basic structure of authorship. And the typical battleground in authorship is depending on the academic environment in which you work, people fight over whether to be first, last, or corresponding author. So our idea is to cover the criteria so that the decision about first, last, and corresponding authorship, as well as the order of authorship, can be made more objectively. Basil, first we are going to look at what are the authorship criteria. So on this, what is your take on this first criterion, which refers to design conception and other contribution to the work?
I think it's probably the core and most important criterion because obviously we all know of let's call it old practice where, for example, a head of department is overseeing a lot of research for researchers who are under their supervision and therefore by virtue will be named on all publications. But clearly this does not meet the ICMGA authorship criteria, particularly for this very first one, and in which is essential for every named author to have substantial contribution to the work. That could be in various, different aspects of a research project, but they need to have made substantial contribution that they can defend and they can, justify being named as an author in this particular article. So,
Yeah, so the related criteria here we see three of them. One relates to writing, reviewing for the intellectual content of the manuscript and approval of the manuscript submitted, plus being able to take responsibility for the work presented.
yeah,
And as you see, after each of the criteria, we see the word and, which means that each of the author has to meet all four of the criterion to meet to become an author.
yeah.
Uh, for this reason, thank you for pointing out earlier that simply being supervisor or simply being the person who is able to secure funding uh, is not sufficient as far as the ICMJ authorship criteria are concerned. ICMJ further clarifies that for those who do not meet all four criteria, the right place to describe their contribution is in the acknowledgement section.
Indeed.
However, we see that on a daily basis, there is a battle and abuse of authorship, and there are disputes concerning authorship. And for this, for help resolve disputes, there is also guidance given by Committee on Publication Ethics. Basil, would you say that the criteria as they exist are too strict and possibly not fit for purpose?
I think we need something a little bit more flexible and adapted to the change we see in research, because we're all aware that these models where a small study can be conducted in one center or in one lab are no longer relevant, and we're all aspiring for bigger projects, multi-center randomized trials. That often they are 20, 30, and we have published examples where we have 98 authors. And clearly, not everyone will meet the authorship criteria that we are identifying here, where everyone is contributing substantially to this body of work, and they deserve acknowledgement and accreditation for their value of work. So we definitely need more adaptive and more inclusive system that is at the same time more transparent.
Okay, so that takes us to the next stage in the development of the authorship criteria. Well, first is the recognition that we got to move beyond the current stringent criteria. And the way to go forward is to think about contribution made. So the credit system, which we are going to describe now, lists 14 possible roles for the contribution, for the contributors. And the ones listed here in blue color map to the criteria of the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. However, as you can see, there are many more in the black color in the list that obviously make studies possible.
Yeah.
So Basil, this goes along with your point that nowadays studies require more authors. The studies ought to be presented in a way that all of those contributions can be described as part of the publication. So I give a little bit more description here that all contributions can be listed regardless of whether the individual will be named as an author or in acknowledgement. Then, Basil, obviously, some people will have multiple roles. But the key thing is that within each role, possibly, there are more than one people contributing. So what do you think about this proposal where they highlight that the degree of contribution can also be listed in the contributorship credit system?
100%. I think it's a positive change because it enables more transparency in conducting research, and it also accountability at the same time, because for every project, for example, you would need too many people doing data curation and sample collection, while you might need only two statisticians. And so it's important to lay and acknowledge the contributions in due order. Often best practice is to have these in a perspective we can produce protocols so that the roles and contributions are set from the start of the project. But we all know sometimes things change, people change, in very long trials, people change careers. And so you need additional new team members where their roles can change and modify. So having this adaptive, flexible, yet transparent system is very conducive to producing more fair and more accountable research.
So this allows us the shared responsibility and transparency in the description of those responsible to take it forward. But also, I know all of us live under the pressure to publish in light of the academic assessments we have to go through. So Basil, what is your opinion about how this system works in academic assessment?
I think it's understandable that universities and employers want to have key performance indicators, and that how we as researchers are contributing to the academic life cycle, and what is our how a researcher time is spent. So this system will enable good sort of performance indicators and good auditing of the productivity of a researcher, while at the same time acknowledging that not all of us can be a chief investigator that is named on several projects. And particularly for people who are hyper productive and they, some people produce 50 publications per year. Is this humanly possible? Is this, what is the clear role? So just being named on the byline does not really give you in-depth insight into how much is a researcher contributing to a particular project. And I think this will give employers and universities a better way to assessing the productivity of every scholar.
Yeah, and with the contribution objectively quantified, it will be more easy to determine the order of authorship. Uh, One further feature of the credit system is that there is a possibility that there is more than the 14 roles as highlighted here. So we got to think imaginatively and be creative in how we deal with this issue. So with this, we'd like to bring the video to an end, and I'll leave Bassel for you to make any concluding remarks here.
I think, like all systems of life, the old model of authorship has served its role, and I think as research becomes more complex and address more complex needs for various stakeholders, we do need more flexible and innovative systems. And I think the credit system is probably the next step forward. But as you mentioned, Khalid, is that there will always be additional roles, particularly as we see newer things coming. For example, AI, and how would the AI be acknowledged, or a medical writer that is translated from a different language. So all these are additional roles that needs to be, duly acknowledged, and evolving these systems and in rechecking them in the future is a very important thing to keep research of high quality and impactful.
Thank you.